Let's get going. So, welcome to this week's episode of Marketing IQ Live. This is a bi weekly workshop we do at Somebody Digital where we discuss the things being discussed by marketing leaders. These are either by clients, sales calls we're on, conversations we see online, just things that we see need a deeper dive. They have some nuance. We maybe have some perspectives on how things are being done particularly well across multiple clients. We have some perspectives on where common challenges come up, where we'll be able to bring some insight. But we're just trying to make your job as a leader who's often managing people within internal teams or agencies and just needs that kind of either breath of inspiration or perspective on how to do things. And I'm joined today by Cristiano Winkler, who is our Director of Operations. Cristiano, welcome.
Pleasure. Hello.
So today's topic is why your AI automations are not working as expected. So before we go anywhere near fixes on that, let's explain what not working as expected actually looks like for many of the companies that we work with, because I've heard this said a lot of time. People, clients we've worked with who have got excited about the latest AI automation or thing they're doing, and the results aren't quite there, and there's kind of consistent patterns, I would say, of things that are coming up of why it's not working as expected. So when you're hearing that, Cristiano, what are some of the things that are common for not working as expected, meaning?
Yeah, and that's precisely the starting point. What is not working, and why do you think is not working, right? Because sometimes the automation is indeed working, but the data you're feeding that automation or process with is incorrect, and then you get the wrong output. So the first step is to try and clarify. What do you mean by is not working? What is exactly not working? Is it the results that you're not expecting? Perhaps it is the automation and something is broken in the middle because they didn't have a process before and they're trying something new for the first time. Maybe they picked the wrong tool. There could be a number of reasons for that claim that this is not working. So we need to try and understand why they think is not working and then figure out what we can do about it. But it's more often than not is an issue with the definition of that.
Yeah. And something I hear you say a lot as well, it's not working because the groundwork wasn't done. Like the mapping out of the workflow. I think the thing with people think with AI is it's this magic thing that's going to do everything quicker and better and blah blah blah. And yes, it will, but the amount of groundwork and grunt work and human work to map out the workflows. How are we doing this? How are the team doing it? How we can do it better? When that stuff is not done correctly, that heavy lifting up front, that is when you don't get the output you expect, right? Because the machine is working on bad workflows or bad data.
100%. And real example here. Um, so this company was trying to automate a few tasks. This one is particular to SEO work. So they had this guy that is helping with all these automations. They hired a third-party company to help them with some automations using tools such as make.com and etc. And the results were not there. Um, then they asked finally the SEO guys to have a look at things, and they looked at the whole workflow. They're like, that's not how we do stuff. This is not how we do the research. That's not the tool that we use. They just forgot one fundamental element in this whole thing, which is you need to understand the actual workflow. You need to map out all the processes within the specific tasks. What do we do when we need to do keyword research? How do we do or how do we conduct competitor analysis, gap analysis, content analysis, technical
Mm-hmm.
SEO? I'm using SEO here as an example, but it applies to any other disciplines. So they started going straight to the tool, trying to build connections and integrations between the various tools that we can potentially utilize. They forgot to map out their own process first to understand how that can be done, when humans are required, when you can be more efficient and get AI to collect data, optimize data, transform data, or provide you insights that will make your job faster, better. more efficient, and have better outputs, basically. So setting that foundation of really mapping out everything before you start any work, it's crucial. And I would say that if you don't do that, you will probably fail, because then you don't know what you're actually trying to automate if you don't understand what the process is.
Hmm. And the people that listen to this are probably CMOs, directors, like more senior marketing. They're not going to be in the weeds doing this, right? But if your team are looking to automate something or create workflows and you're not seeing these kind of documents, then there's something wrong. So you shouldn't be the one doing them, but it should be the expectation that you're seeing them. And if you're a small team that's kind of learning AI as you go along, these are the things that you need to learn of what you want. But if you're in a privileged position where you have some good kind of AI um, implementers and people that have worked in this, like you need to be seeing this and cast your eye over it, right? Because this work up front to make sure you've got the correct workflows is really important. And I'd say a point within the workflow that we come across a lot as well is the data that is feeding into those, right? So maybe your workflow is access this tool, and this tool. If your analytics has been a shit show for the last 5 years and you don't trust the data in GA or Adobe or whatever you're using, and there's all this fudging of the data in the weekly reports because you couldn't automate the dashboard because you have to exclude Japan because they're not real, or whatever the thing is, that is all going to get fed into the AI as well, right? So this data cleansing, governance, like making sure it's correct is such an important part. But that is a different step to the workflows, correct?
Correct. It comes even before the workflow. And to your
Mm,
own point, this is something organizations typically neglect. And we always say, right, that the quality of the output is directly related to the quality of the input. If you garbage in, garbage out, in plain
yeah.
terms, we have seen this all over social media. So if your analytics is broken, you have inconsistent data, you're missing information, or you have incorrect information, doesn't matter what you try to do, it's not going to work. It's going to fail.
Mm,
And AI will make observations and try and come up with insights if it's doing analysis, for example, based on incorrect data. So you need to fix the foundation first.
mm,
Interestingly enough, analytics is perhaps the most important element, because it will help you make decisions based on data, and is the one people typically neglect. They're not interested. They think, oh, it's good enough. This is sufficient. We did an audit on an account, Google Analytics account the other day. They had 220 events. They should have five. So that's confusing. How do you know
mm,
which ones are working? How will AI be able to analyze that data? How will you connect that data and find correlations between how the different channels are working and performing, and what can you do more of? Because that question is going to come, right? If you're planning for your next year's budget, eventually the CFO is going to ask, where should we be spending more money? And you're not going to be able to answer that question because your data has zero value. You don't even know what you're doing. And if you do have the right type of data, AI is definitely an amazing tool that will help you analyze everything that happened in the last 12 months based on correct data from your analytics, as a example of many other examples that we can utilize here. We find correlations between campaigns. You need to feed it with enough context, and then you will be able to confidently get back to your CFO and say, if we double down here, we are more likely to see a lift of X% in performance. This other channel is doing okay. We should invest more. Well, we shouldn't reduce budget either, because it plays a really important part in terms of brand awareness, as an example. So you will find all those insights very, very quickly, and then you're going to be able to plan accordingly. But your data has to be something that you can trust. If you cannot trust your data, or is incorrect, or is messy, or is lacking information, then it's not going to work at all.
mhm. Let's dig into some of these things that we've said, right? Because I want to give the audience the angles to go at when they're presented with something that's been automated that kind of isn't firing up there, because the pressure that we know everybody's under is often from the board, the execs, the chairsmen of around everybody's doing AI. We're not moving fast enough. We can see that competitors moving faster, so everyone's moving fast. But it's the speed that's often kind of getting them in trouble that we've noticed. Like what is the importance of managing expectations of speed when you're doing AI? And what I mean by that is, from our experience, how many iterations it can take to get something correct.
Yeah, it's a great question. And the number of iterations required to get a process polished and to get it to work will depend on your capacity of recording all these steps, what goes wrong, what worked within that process. In our case, we built our own knowledge bases when we are working with AI, when we are creating automation, when we are creating workflows for our processes. We don't start with, okay, we want to automate everything on paid media or everything in SEO. Number one, we map out everything. And then we start with one element. All right, we're going to be doing keyword research. And then when we have our internal conversations to try and understand what does it require for us to be able to do good keyword research, we put tools aside. We pretend we're doing that process manually. Once we have everything, then this is when you can have conversations with AI to try and improve that process. When you start exploring possibilities to integrate with the tools you already use, SEMrush, Ahrefs, or any other tools that you use for keyword research, for example. And then you start interacting with AI, but you need to record everything that AI does. So if you get a bad output, okay, we do keyword research, we need to group keywords into specific topics, intent, this is the output that we desire, and then you finally get an output from AI, and you look at that and you say, this is not really what I expected. What went wrong? If you're not recording every single step, if you're not asking AI to write a specification, or if you are not writing that specification for AI with a clear plan of all these steps, you mapped out your process, those are the specifications, explain in detail exactly how you do it, a proper brief, right? Then AI will try and execute on that, and then you will review that process once it's done. So if you do that right, a couple of iterations usually will get the work done. And as you progress with that process, sometimes you don't even need more than 2 or 3 iterations with AI. Having iterations is normal, right? It's like you're talking to an intern. He's not going to get it right the first time, period. We need to be very conscious of that. But you can certainly decrease that process and have 2 or 3 iterations, which is absolutely normal as well. Having 6 or 7, okay, there's room for improvement here. Maybe you're not giving the right instructions. Maybe we're missing a little bit of context. Maybe you didn't give an example of what you want your report to look like, and then AI came up with
Mhm.
something completely off brand, not with the information we require. So the devil's in the detail, right? So you really need to do a thorough job, and this is when you need to spend a lot of time on. Um, Mapping out the process, but most importantly, going at every single stage of that process and giving as much detail and context as possible, then you will be more likely to get an excellent or at least a very high quality output.
hmm I think that's a good point. If you're not getting the output that you want from your workflows or your AI, it's like high school maths, right? When it doesn't matter if you get it right, sometimes so long as you show you're working, so long as you can see how you got to it. And I think that's how we work with our AI, right? The instructions for each stage of the output are so well documented that when the thing that comes out isn't quite correct, we can go through with a human eye, with human context, and go, I'm telling it to do the wrong thing, or it's making an assumption. But it's when you have all those details mapped out that you can see, that is the problem there, rather than it giving it some big chunk of information or prompt or thing to do, and then you kind of don't know which is the piece causing the problem.
Exactly. And you can use reverse engineering for that. We're working on a massive migration for one of our clients. They have so many websites, domains, subdomains. It took us 2 weeks to just to collect all the necessary data, from website data to servers, and so we had to combine all of that, and we had to do analysis on all that data. The prompt wasn't, here's a folder with all the data for these two domains, and I need to do an analysis on that data and let me know what we should do for a migration. That's not the prompt, right? our specialists know what we need to do with each element of that data. So we carefully explain to AI, we have all this data, this is what we're trying to achieve, but we want to do it in stages. We think we should do it this way. What is your recommendation? AI is
Hmm.
clever. It understands the process. You can ask it to act as a technical SEO or an SEO specialist in migration that specializes in migration or whatever it is. And AI came back with a plan. Okay, phase one, we're going to be doing this. First of all, we're going to ensure the data is consistent. The first task there was we'll analyze the whole data, see if there are any gaps, if everything is correct, if we can find correlations, and then we're going to collect all that data and we're going to combine it into one single database with all the elements we need from all the different sources. Step number two, we're going to analyze X, Y, and Z. Step number three, we're going to do a further analysis here and there. Step number four, we're going to try and find correlations because we're talking about two websites, two brands that are merging. So what are the pages that will cannibalize each other based on context of those pages? So we're able to do a very thorough process with excellent output, with a clear plan. But all these steps came from our specialists explaining what we're trying to achieve and the data we had. And we used AI for ideation to refine that process, to understand what could be done better, differently. And by having a step-by-step process and execute each step, have a look at the output, see if it's what we desire, we were able to do something that usually takes 2 3 months. We were able to do it in 3 weeks, basically, which
Hmm.
is amazing for the size of that website. So that's a real example on how to iterate with AI. Get AI to help you build a process, but do it step by step with the specialists basically monitoring the work and ensuring that everything is consistent.
Hmm. I want to ask a question now, and I hope it's not a curveball because I don't know if we have a clean, succinct answer for this. Like we always say, you've got to start with the data, right? Like even with AI projects, like fixing the data is the most important part. But like 5, 10 years ago, it's boring, it's invisible. There's no kind of big fanfare when you fix it, but it is the thing that the AI automation kind of lives and dies by. Like, but what is the bar for a marketing leader to know when their data is like AI ready or AI good enough? Like, is there a way that we can decide that?
Yes. And the good news is you can use AI for that. If you have data or if you already have an integration, AI is very good at spotting inconsistencies, spotting problems. You just need to explain what you're trying to achieve. You just need to explain what that data is for. And data could be anything. Data could be a collection of SOPs, standard operational procedures that describe how your company does things. Data could be a organogram of how specific departments work, because that will help you with when you're producing content. As an example, you know which individuals have to help you with specific types of content or whatever that is, right? So anything that requires uh, an input, meaning any chunk, if you have a file with information, that's data, right? So you can use AI to try and analyze the quality of that data. You just need to clearly explain your objective. This is what I'm trying to achieve. We're trying to increase our revenue by X, Y%. I have data from A, B, and C. I have data from analytics. I have data from Salesforce. This is the data I have available. What are the gaps? What are the opportunities for improvement? Is there anything missing? How do you recommend we reorganize or polish this data so we can actually utilize it for insights, budget planning, um, channel mix planning, and things like that. And AI will get back to you with very valuable information on what's missing, what you should be fixing. But you do need your data analytics specialist to review all of that to ensure nothing is missing, because that discernment still comes from us, not necessarily from AI. But you can do that relatively quickly these days and get AI to help you with that.
Hmm. How often have we found when we've been automating things for clients and ourselves that the workflow that we would do manually as humans, that when we tried to automate that, the AI found much better ways of doing it? Is it just always finding better ways of doing it, or is it more often the case that the process was right? There's just better ways of speeding it up.
Regularly. There's
Mm,
always an opportunity for improvement. And that's a mistake some organizations make. When you're mapping out your processes, you're not trying to improve that yet. Just map out in the way you actually do it.
mm,
Everything can be improved, absolutely everything. Deciding which things will be a priority, which things will bring the most value in terms of efficiencies, um, monetary gains, or whatever that is, that's a job for later. But more, we did that with our own processes. We mapped out everything, then we went back to AI, and okay, this is how we do it. We're trying to save time, we're trying to do things better, faster. We're trying to complement this process with additional valuable information. um, and competitor analysis is a great example of that. We added a couple of steps that we get actually AI to do research for us, and that information is absolute gold. So I would say that in the vast majority of cases, I'm not going to give a percentage here because it's going to be super high if I had to guess more than 80%. Um, there is an opportunity to improve the processes and procedures, but you need to map that out first. And then you can get AI to help you come up with ideas on how to make things better. That's one of the most beautiful things about AI. You can use it for ideation, and it will help you improve those processes.
mm. So you work in a big company. Everybody in the exec level in leadership is discussing AI strategy, what we need to be doing. And the reality is, we know that the teams are already using it, just not the approved version. Everyone's using Claude or ChatGPT. They're all doing their thing. Like, how big are we seeing in our own company, or were we seeing in our own company? Because I think we've got our act together with this within our own company and others. Like, how big would you say is like the shadow AI problem of how people are using it themselves and not sharing it, and the data they're pulling from us? Like, is that a threat or an opportunity for companies?
I think both,
Mm,
and I'll explain why. So just a year ago, we were very happy in utilizing GPT, ChatGPT, and we had amazing prompts. Now we have Claude Code, Codex. We have independent agents like OpenClaw, Hermes, and there's a bunch of other stuff coming out, right? So you do want people to try and experiment new technologies and new tools. That's innovation. That element of creativity is absolutely necessary. And we do encourage that with our own team members. However, we do have policies in place of what data you can actually share with those tools. Definitely not client data, definitely not sensitive data. What are the boundaries? What are the guardrails, right? What the do's and don'ts, very, very clear. And we do have a whole set of standard tools that are based on our processes. And there's a caveat to that, which I'm going to mention in a few moments. But those are the tools that we use with our own subscriptions, with our still with policies and guardrails on what we can do, what we can share, what we cannot share. So that's very important. I think start with that. We have identified the tools that really work well for us, but we are not ignoring everything else that is happening out there because everything is moving super, super fast. A model that is the best model today might be replaced by a new model next week or tomorrow. An amazing tool that we used to use, I can use an example. We used to work a lot with Manus. We simply don't have any subscription of Manus anymore. We now work with Codex and Cloud Code because they are superior to what we want to do. And to work as a team makes things easier as well, right? So it moves really, really fast. So the caveat that I mentioned earlier, when we came up with our processes, we tried and make everything tool and model agnostic. So we can very quickly switch between tools and models without losing anything. That's why it's important for you to map out your processes and the way you do things without thinking about the tools and technologies as if you were doing it manually yourself, right? So it's very easy for us to adopt a new tool and technology, but we go through a process before we decide to switch. We also encourage our guys, as I said earlier, to experiment new tools and technologies. 80% of the time, we come back and say, yeah, not for us. It's not superior, it's not better, it's not faster, it's actually more expensive. But that experimentation is crucial. It's very
Mhm.
important for individuals to be able to play a little bit with new technologies. And
Mhm.
that's how we manage to create a good balance between allowing them to experiment, but also ensuring that we are following our policies, because we're dealing with data. That's quite important. And we have a standard way of working with these tools.
Mhm. Of the people that you've seen using AI the best and those kind of having a go, like what's the difference between those who are doing it really well and those who aren't? Like what are the kind of consistencies you see?
Process. The ones that are able to utilize AI well have a clear goal and a clear process in mind. They are able to transfer that into a AI environment to create workflows, to create systems, to create procedures. That is the difference. If you
Mhm.
know what you're doing and you already know what you can automate, improve, and you know what AI can help you with, that's amazing. I can give you an example. We hired a AI transformation specialist. Is an AI automation guy that does not have digital marketing background. You get that guy to create automations for us, nothing will work because he doesn't understand the workflows. Our guys that have been playing with AI, the SEO specialists, the PPC specialists, work with this other guy. They come with the concepts, they come with the ideas, they already know what they need to automate, and he makes those things a reality for them. So they work together. It's a little bit of both worlds because they have two specialists working together. That's how it works. So if you get an SEO guy that sometimes is also a developer, he might be able to do everything himself. But you usually have the specialist that understand the processes very clearly, and you have another individual that makes that dream a reality. So the difference is basically process. You
Mhm.
have people that know what they need to do, and you have someone else that is able to execute that and make it happen.
Mhm. So for the people watching, the thing to do, if it's not already being done, is go to the team, whoever it is, or the agencies, and ask to see the documented processes of how you do things and are they being used within all the AI tools and the workflows to improve.
It's boring work, but it's absolutely necessary. It's the
Yeah,
foundation of everything.
yeah.
If you do not have your processes mapped out, everything else is going to fail.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be the whole department, as I said earlier. Start with one task, keyword research. I'll use that as an example because it might be the easiest. How do we do it? This is how we do it, step by step. And you can jump on a call, record that call, and you get the call transcript. You transfer that to AI. That's it. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be too complex. You don't have to do everything manually. You don't have to write it down yourself, come up with all these workflows and etc. Just go on a call and ask your SEO specialist to describe how do you do keyword research. Forget about the tools. That's very important. I'll say that one more time. Don't mention a SEMrush or Ahrefs or whatever. Just tell me how you do it because he's going to be able to explain things in detail. So start with that. Start with one very, very easy thing, and that's going to open doors. Everybody will get excited because they will see automations working. They will see how this can actually make their work more efficient. They will have access to data and insights that didn't exist before. And then adoption increases like crazy, right? When people see something working, they want more of it. That's the
Hmm.
position we are in at the moment, which is it comes with other challenges, but it's a much better position to be in, if I'm honest. So pick one thing, ensure that you have the right process written down, and then you take it from there, and then you expand from there.
Hmm. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Cristiano. I will put this out. We're at the end of the workshop. Do we have any questions from anybody? We have one. How important is it to have an AI specialist as opposed to the marketing department just doing it? That's from someone called Jenny.
That's a great question. There's no rule for it, if I'm honest. It depends on how your organization is structured, right? We made a choice as an agency to hire an automation specialist because we didn't want our SEO and paid media specialists to have to learn a new skill or spend time on things that are not part of their speciality. We do have very technical specialists that could actually get these things done themselves, but is it worth their time? We'd rather have specialists working on their specialities. So I would say it's crucial to have someone responsible for the automation. You might already have a developer in-house, or you might already have a AI enthusiast in-house that is part of a different team that can help you with that. If you don't, highly recommend you hire one. You do need to have a specialist that is able to execute the workflows as designed, as described by other departments and other specialists.
Mm. Great. Any other questions from anybody? No more questions. Cristiano, thank you very much. Everybody else, thank you very much for listening, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank
All
you,
right.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.